So you think you know Ohio? Maybe not so much. Every state has its own unique set of cryptids to call its own, but the Buckeye State could win awards for its oversized menagerie of weirdness. And today, we are joined by one of Ohio's very own, Matt Emch from Planet 412, to call out just a few of these top honors. I'm Carol Ann, and welcome to the InBetween. All right, Ohio, you've done it. Not only are you the first state I think of when I think about Dogman, but you've popped up on the weirdness radar enough times for other things that it's time to call you out with the street cred you deserve with your very own Cryptid Academy Awards. And what would an award show be without a co-host? Boring. So I am proud to announce my co-host today is none other than Ohio's own cryptid master, Matt Emch from the YouTube channel Planet 412. How are you today, my friend?
I'm doing great, Carol Ann. It's awesome to be back doing a collaboration with you and the InBetween. And the 412 is ready to roll, so let's get started.
Awesome. Well, we are here to give some awards that I think are well-deserved to some of Ohio's cryptid finest. But first, Matt and I both have an honorable mention we want to include. Matt, why don't you go first?
And the honorable mention goes to the Mills Lake Swamp Monster, Ohio's own Swamp Thing. From Mifflin, Ohio is where this story comes from. In a glass frame behind the counter at Charles Mill Lake Marina, a story is displayed for visitors to read. The tale is not that of a monstrous catfish caught at the dam, though some might claim it's a fishy story. Others might call it childish or simply a work of fiction. It is the tale of the Charles Mill Lake Monster, an amphibious cryptid that allegedly once terrorized the lake and its inhabitants. Dating back to 1959, the monster is described as a huge, armless humanoid with luminous green eyes and large webbed feet, according to a story written by former reporter Rob Morphy on AmericanMonsters.com, which he co-created with Mark Storrs. The most famous reported encounter took place March 28th of that year when three friends, Denny Patterson, Wayne Armstrong, and Michael Lane, claimed to have run into the beast. After a quick getaway, the then teens contacted authorities to investigate the scene on the shores of the lake. According to the story, the officers discovered a series of tracks that resembled the footgear worn by skin divers. There has been only one reported encounter since then. Bill Schradley, owner of both Charles Mill and Pleasant Hill Marinas, said he has never heard too many locals talking about the beast. The incidents occurred long before Schradley's tenure, and he said the story seemed to fade over the years. But recently, the local legend has resurfaced. Unlike other cryptid legends, the story of the Mill Lake Monster has names and dates associated with it. Something Schradley said differentiates it from other lore. In 1985, Lauren Coleman, who studies cryptozoology, published a book titled Curious Encounters, in which he wrote about the local monster. The thing was seen again in 1963 and described as luminous and green-eyed, he wrote. I examined the site of these encounters and can testify to the Charles Mill Lake swampy affinities. Certainly a good home for a Black Lagoon beast.
That's crazy. No, thank you. Well, my honorable mention goes to Orange Eyes, one of the almost dozen different Bigfoot variations that call Ohio home. What makes Orange Eyes different from your run-of-the-mill Sasquatch is, of course, his bright orange eyes, but also his incredible stats, coming in at an astonishing 11 feet tall and weighing about 1,000 pounds. Dang! Orange Eyes made his first public debut around the 1960s around Charles Mill Reservoir outside of Mansfield, and more specifically, Ruggles Road, the Lover's Lane makeout spot for Ashland County. Witnesses say the beast was covered in thick, matted hair and had a stench that required something a little stronger than tomato juice to get rid of it. He's said to have terrorized people who made the trip to Lover's Lane by looking in windows, banging on the windows, or even rocking cars so hard they almost tipped over. In April of 1968, a bunch of school kids were hanging in the area at night. Oh, those were different times, when they spotted the orange glowing eyes. But instead of screaming and running away, they chased it with their flashlights, baseball bats, and rope. Although I'd love to know what they thought they were going to do with it if they caught up with it. The last recorded encounter came in June of 1991 when two fishermen are trying their luck near Willis Creek, which is just a little bit south of Charles Mill Lake. These two guys hear something walking, look over at the opposite bank, and see two orange eyes. They played statue for a few minutes, hoping to not attract any attention, and the beast finally just moved on. Now, in all fairness, there's talk of this one being debunked, something about a guy running around the forest waving a stick with orange bike reflectors on it. Maybe it's me, but Orange Eyes actually seems like a more plausible answer than that guy. Either way, an 11-foot, 1,000-pound smelly creature with glowing orange eyes deserves an honorable mention in my book. Okay, it's time to get to the major awards. Matt, why don't you go first with your first category winner?
And the meanest hombre award goes to the Minerva Monster. The Minerva Monster is a cryptid, an alleged creature whose existence is unproven, reportedly seen in and around Minerva, Ohio, primarily during the late summer of 1978. The small town of Minerva is located in Stark County, nestled among dense woods and rural farmland, making it the perfect setting for strange sightings. The most famous and well-documented encounters come from the Clayton family, who lived on the outskirts of town near a heavily wooded area. Their terrifying experiences would soon spark a wave of curiosity, media attention, and speculation that still lingers decades later. In August 1978, Evelyn and Hal Clayton, along with their grandchildren, reported a large, hairy, foul-smelling creature lurking in the woods behind their home. They described it as being around 7 feet tall, weighing over 300 pounds, and covered in dark, shaggy hair. Its eyes reportedly glowed red, and it emitted a putrid odor, a detail many later witnesses would confirm. One of the Stark County deputy sheriffs who always seemed to be on the scene was James Shannon. He also had always talked about this smell. It always grabbed him, and he also noticed, obviously, a lot of the damage to the house. The creature was first seen near an old gravel pit on their property, appearing to be watching the house and the people inside. In a particularly frightening moment, the family saw the creature peering into the windows, standing completely still, just observing. Over the following days, the creature returned repeatedly, sometimes accompanied by bizarre howling and the sound of rocks being thrown at their home. At one point, the family's German Shepherd disappeared and was unfortunately later found dead. Its neck snapped, which many took as a chilling warning. Also, through this time, people at different residences had mentioned and reported that their dogs had gone missing. The encounters were serious enough that the Claytons contacted the Stark County Sheriff's Department, like I mentioned, James Shannon specifically. When the officers arrived, they noticed the unmistakable stench described by the family, though they didn't see the creature themselves. The damage and the scent could not be ignored. Police conducted interviews and filed official reports, but ultimately could not explain what the family saw. Though they remained neutral in their public statements, some officers, like James Shannon, privately admitted they believed the family truly encountered something unusual. The family always seemed to be extremely upset. He had also mentioned that there was no way that this family was lying. People that distressed just did not make these things up. Soon after, local newspapers and TV stations picked up the story, and the term Minerva monster was born. Following the Clayton reports, other local residents came forward, claiming they too had seen similar creatures over the years. Tall, ape-like silent figures wandering through fields or emerging from the woods, sometimes with two or more. While the sightings were localized to Stark County, they echoed tales from other regions in the U.S., most notably Bigfoot reports from the Pacific Northwest. This led many to believe the Minerva monster was Ohio's own version of Bigfoot. Though the Minerva monster vanished as suddenly as it appeared, its legend endured. Interest was revived in the 2010s with documentaries and interviews, most notably the 2015 independent film Minerva Monster by Small Town Monsters, which explored the story in depth and interviewed surviving witnesses. Today, the creature has become a symbol of local folklore. Minerva has even hosted festivals and gatherings in its honor. Whether the Minerva monster was a rare, undiscovered animal or the product of a frightened community's imagination, it left a lasting mark on Ohio lore. It remains one of the most credible and widely investigated cryptid sightings in the Midwest and continues to captivate those drawn to the mysteries lurking just beyond the edge of the woods.
Wow. Never really wanted to meet a Bigfoot, but I really don't want to meet that guy. Okay, my first category is going to the biggest cryptid. And out of all the Ohio cryptids, I think it's fair to say that the award for the biggest has to go to Bessie, the snake-like water serpent, better known to some of you as the Lake Erie monster, measuring in by some reports at almost 50 feet long. Well done. Now, I know the idea of a 50-foot serpent in Lake Erie can be kind of hard to believe. Most people probably go to the swamp gas excuse for any given sea monster. Lake sturgeon. I'm certainly not trying to throw shade on sturgeon. For freshwater fish, they're huge, but they don't crack 10 feet. Sightings of this enormous aquatic beast date back before newspapers got to Ohio. In fact, all of the local Native American tribes surrounding the Great Lakes, including all 6 nations of the Iroquois Confederacy, hold legends of a great horned serpent that lives in the underworld. So the stories of this beast have been around as long as there have been eyes in the area to see it. The first recorded sighting comes from Shnikes, Sandusky, Ohio, in 1793, when the captain of the sloop Felicity reports disturbing a large snake-like creature while shooting at ducks north of Sandusky. He described it as more than a rod, which is an old unit of measurement equaling 16.5 feet in length. The next report just a few years later in 1818. And this one is recorded in the very first edition of the Cleveland Gazette and Commercial Register, the first newspaper started in the Cleveland area. And it was a letter submitted by Simon Honesty. So, he's not lying. Not only does he mention many previous reports in the area of this creature stretching back the previous 3 summers, but goes on to describe that the day before, he was on the sloop Speculation when they spied something thrashing in the water about a mile ahead. As they got closer, they could see the head and tail both sticking out of the water. And they guessed its length at 50 feet and circumference of around 4 feet, so just over a foot in diameter. Sounds like it needs to eat a sandwich or two. Once they got to within about 150 feet of it, it got a little anxious, stuck its forked tongue out at them, splashed its tail enough to froth up the water, and disappeared under the surface. That same year, it showed up around Toledo to the great surprise of 2 French settlers, the Dussault brothers. These guys hit the beach only to find a 30-foot-long sturgeon-looking thing writhing on the ground like it wasn't long for this earth. And yes, you heard that right. They said it looked like a sturgeon. However, they also said it had human-like arms. They ran to get help, or more likely witnesses, but the creature was gone when they returned, leaving only some disturbed sand and a few silver scales. Fast forward to 1892, and there's a report from another ship going from Buffalo to Toledo. They see a 50-foot-long, 4-foot-wide, sounds like he got that sandwich, brownish creature churning the water ahead of them. The description noted this aquatic terror as having viciously sparkling eyes and large fins. What exactly does viciously sparkling mean? We're going to fast forward again to 1931, but don't think for a second that these are all the sightings on record. A search of newspapers.com for sea monster or lake monster through the 19th century brings up all kinds of stories, not only internationally, but right here around our own Great Lakes. So, back to 1931. Several people around Sandusky report seeing what looks like a row of kegs, which disappears as an alligator-like head pops up. And because human nature is quite predictable, this sighting is quickly followed by a report of 2 cement salesmen from Cincinnati, Clifford Wilson and Francis Coggins-Toes. Sorry, Francis. Clifford Wilson and Francis Coggins-Toes claiming, "We got her!" The 2 men say they were just floating around between Sandusky and Cedar Point when they happened to notice this thing gliding through the water. They hit it on the head with an oar, apparently that was enough to kill it, tow it back to shore, throw it in a crate, because we all have those laying around, and nail it shut. The next thing out of their mouths, where's the reward money? We just saved you all from this menacing monster. People of Sandusky say, sorry guys. Not to let an opportunity go to waste, the 2 men put the creature on display at one of the Cedar Point carnivals, where people can see the one and only Lake Erie monster for the bargain price of 15 cents a head. That is, until Clifford's uncle gets wind of what's going on. He let people know that Clifford is not a cement salesman, he's a carnival worker. Better check that serpent. They did. Turned out to be most likely an Indian python, but certainly not a lake serpent. Okay, one bad apple. But there are so many more sightings. In 1960, Ken Golick is fishing off of Sandusky Pier when he sees a cigar-shaped creature 1 to 2 feet wide rise from the water and crawl onto a beach using 4 flippers. 1969, near South Bass Island. Jim Schneider reported a serpent about 2 feet wide coming within 6 feet of him while he was fishing. He doesn't know how long it was, but the rest of the description sounds just like Bessie. 1981, on the Cedar Point Causeway. From her house on the causeway, Teresa Kovach sees a snake-like creature large enough to capsize a boat. 1983, in Rye Beach, Mary M. Landau sees a 40 to 50-foot greenish-brown creature with a long neck and one visible eye near her porch. 1985, around Vermilion and the Lorraine Coast Guard Station. 1986, again near Lorraine. 1990, 1991. 1993 had enough sightings that even the Weekly World News did a story on it. And on up to the latest report I could find, which was 2021. But remember, those are only the reported sightings. How many are not reported? Of course, this area of South Bay has embraced its slimy, slender celebrity who's been the inspiration for not only the AHL hockey team, kind of like the baseball minor leagues, the Cleveland Monsters, but also for the Great Lakes Brewing Company Imperial IPA beer called the Lake Erie Monster. So, if you find yourself hanging around northern Ohio in the
Holy shnikes
Sandusky area, take a few minutes and look out at the water. You never know what slippery celebrity you might see. Okay, Matt, what's the next category on your list?
And the weirdest cryptid award goes to the Loveland frog creatures. The Loveland frogman is a legendary creature rooted in Ohio folklore, particularly associated with the town of Loveland near Cincinnati. Described as a humanoid frog standing approximately 4 feet tall, this cryptid has been the subject of various reported sightings and has become a notable figure in local culture. The earliest known report of the Loveland frogman dates back to May 1955. According to the legend, a traveling salesman driving through Loveland late at night claimed to have seen 3 bipedal frog-like creatures standing by the roadside. These creatures were described as having leathery skin and frog faces, and in some versions of the story, one of them held a wand that emitted sparks. This initial account laid the foundation for the frogman's place in Ohio folklore. The legend gained renewed attention in 1972 with reports from local law enforcement. On March 3rd, Officer Ray Shockey reported seeing an unidentified animal with leathery skin crouched like a frog near the Little Miami River. 2 weeks later, Officer Mark Matthews encountered a similar creature and shot it, later identifying it as a large iguana, missing its tail. Matthew believed the animal was an escaped pet, and both officers concluded that the earlier sightings were likely misidentifications. I will say this, considering that these were 2 police officers, highly trained individuals whose opinions are based on watching and learning from what they see, you have to take this very seriously. Police officers generally are the types that don't talk about cryptids and supernatural or paranormal things. But it makes you wonder, since he changed his opinion about what happened, was it his superiors that told him to do so? Was it other officers that started to give him some guff because of what he supposedly saw? Despite the 1972 clarification, the Loveland frogmen continued to capture public imagination. In 2016, a local teenager claimed to have seen a creature resembling the frogman while playing Pokemon Go, reigniting interest in the legend. The frogman has since become an integral part of Loveland's identity. In 2023, the city embraced the creature as its official mascot, featuring a Frog Prince character at community events. The legend has also inspired various cultural works, including the 2014 musical Hot Damn, It's the Loveland Frog, and the 2023 horror film Frogman. Today, the Loveland Frogman stands as a symbol of regional folklore, blending mystery, community identity, and cultural expression. And they definitely deserved getting the award for the weirdest cryptid.
Now that guy I want to meet. Anyway, our last award for the evening is more of a general category. And I get the feeling I am about to tell you Ohioans something about yourself that you did not know. According to a map created by Reddit poster Truth is Fiction YT, California, Texas, and Florida each have over 20 cryptids each in their state. And Ohio and a few others are in the second tier. Okay, but if we include the 11 different variations of Bigfoot that Ohio claims, Grassman, Minerva Monster, Orange Eyes, Cedar Bog Monster, Clear Creek Monster, Mohican Monster, Southeastern Ohio Wildman, Guernsey County Ape Man, Tuscarawas River Beast, Wayne National Forest Shadow, Hocking Hill Stalker. Which is pretty award-worthy in its own right. I think that puts you guys back in the top tier. Now, when you factor in the population of each state divided by the number of cryptids each state has, that gives us a per capita cryptid rating. And guess what? Ohio ranks in with over 1.5 cryptids per million people, while the runner-up, Texas, only has 0.7 per million. The Buckeye State wins. Well done, Ohio. And it's not just the sheer number, though that is impressive, but it's the variety. Everything from cryptid classics of Bigfoot and Dogman to the wonderful diversity of the Loveland frogman, the melonheads, Mothman, and the puckwudgie. Speaking of puckwudgies, let's talk about those little tricksters. These 2-foot-tall gray-skinned goblins come straight from Algonquin lore, carried to Ohio by tribes like the Lenape and Mohican. They are magical mischief makers who love to shapeshift, turn invisible, and play pranks. The Wampanoag say the giant Maushop scattered puckwudgies across the Great Lakes, with some of them landing in Ohio's woods where they live to this day. Back in 2014, 2 kids in Northwest Ohio, near the Michigan line, saw a tiny creature with big ears by an old burial ground. They swore it was a puckwudgie straight out of legend. You might find them lurking in Mohican State Park or near the ancient mounds in Newark, drawn to spots buzzing with spiritual energy. Ohio loves its little puckwudgies so much, they made it into the Ohio and Unnatural History exhibit at the Rutherford B. Hayes Museum in Fremont, alongside Bessie and Frogman. So, why does Ohio have so many creatures? Well, just look at the land. Lake Erie's depths hide Bessie, while Charles Mills's swamps are a great hiding place for Orange Eyes. The forests cover 33% of the state, from Hocking Hills to Wayne National Forest. That is a lot of acreage for Grassman and his 11 cousins, with very few bears to blame for mistaken identity. Ohio is a cryptid paradise. And it's not just modern tales. Ohio's cryptid roots dig deep. Way before Reddit maps, the Seneca told of the Oneira, a Lake Erie serpent that might be Bessie's ancestor. The Shawnee spoke of the wild ones that sound a lot like Grassman. The Great Serpent Mound, a 1,348-foot tribute to serpent spirits, shows Ohio's been monster-centric for a whole long time. And Ohio doesn't just like its cryptids, they throw parties for them. Salt Fork's Bigfoot Conference, where Grassman is king, draws hundreds of people every year. Hocking Hills hosts Bigfoot hikes, while
Holy shnikes!
Sandusky sends boats to chase down Bessie. From festivals to the Cleveland Monsters hockey team, it is a statewide mania. Some say Bessie's just a big fish. Frogman's just an iguana. But with 20 cryptids from native tales to today, Ohio's tradition of belief is unbeatable. That's why the most cryptid inhabited state award goes to Ohio. So there you have it. Our list of award-winning cryptids that make Ohio one of the most terrifying places to visit in this entire country. And who knows? We might just be back with another round. What do you think, Matt? Think we could come up with more Ohio winners? Or maybe we tackle a new state?
Oh, I absolutely think we could come up with some more Ohio winners, Carol Ann. We left out one that's near and dear to where I live. Well, maybe not near and dear, but you know what I mean. And I absolutely would love to revisit doing this again with you and hitting some of the other states. I can't wait to do it again. It's always amazing having Planet 412 and the InBetween do a collaboration together. Thank you so much. Love you.
Thank you so much, Matt. It has been a pleasure. Special thanks to my co-host, Mr. Matt Emch. If you haven't already, or even if you have, make sure you check out his YouTube channel, Planet 412, for his own stellar style of storytelling. If you want to continue down the less traveled path of cryptid craziness, click right here. Be careful out there, and I will see you here again on the InBetween.